All right. Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the issues yesterday. My internet just suddenly went down yesterday for like 5 hours. So sorry we're unable to have office hours yesterday, but we're back up and running today. Just want to make sure that we are live here. Bear with me here. All right, so we are good to go. Yeah, sorry the page isn't quite updated yet, but all right, should be good to go now. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. Should be below the video if on a smaller screen, to the right of the video if on a larger screen. So we'll start here with Gene W. So Gene W says, can I do all the drills in the 20-minute distance fix using a 7-iron? Want to do indoors using a swing speed monitor? I mean, you certainly can. We recommend doing it with a driver just because, it's going to be more fun to hit your driver, farther. And, as you get more speed with your driver, you're going to tend to get, more with all the other clubs as well. But yeah, if, you're kind of indoors and maybe you don't have the space to be able to hit a driver, but you can swing another club. It's not the most ideal situation, but you're definitely going to get some gains just from doing that. So yes, you absolutely can do it with a 7-iron. All right, let's keep going. So David K says, last time I played, I hit a lot of pull hooks. I thought about it after the round, and I think my shoulders were moving too horizontally on the downswing. Can you recommend a drill to help me move the shoulders more vertically on the downswing? So what I would recommend doing, because let's talk about what's happening when you hit a pull hook, right? What's happening is you're coming down steep and the face is too close, right? So the club, when we hit a pull hook, right? So if this is my target line, right? This alignment stick, and sorry, this is trying to get this to be, it'll eventually focus eventually. But if this is my target line, I know it's kind of blurry, so I do apologize, but eventually, like I said, it'll focus. So like I said, if this is my target line, here's my ball. Your club is working outside the target line, hitting the ball, then inside the target line, and then the club face is closed along with it. So really what you need to do is you just need to get this club working from inside the target line to outside the target line. Now, does moving your shoulders necessarily in a different way, more vertically versus horizontally, does that change that? It could, but I would focus on what the club is doing. So what I would recommend doing is working through our 20-minute shallowing fix, because that's really what the issue is not shallowing out the club, right? So to get to the 20-minute shallowing fix, click the instruction tab, then click the 20-minute shallowing fix. Man, it usually, if I stand here for a second, there we go. All right, now we're a lot clearer. So yeah, 20-minute shallowing fix, instruction tab, 20-minute shallowing fix. That's what I'd recommend doing. All right, so Ben J says, Q, your office hours and videos are terrific. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. My question is how to hit the ball first and take a divot. I'm a picker and or sweeper. I do hit the ball well, took the shallowing course, and now swinging into out. Once I start the swing, I just cannot get this myself to strike it first. Please help. So basically what we would have to understand is that the club works around in a circle, right? It's an arc. So the club comes down, reaches a bottom point in that arc, and then it starts to work back up. So in order to make ball first and then turf contact, we need that circle to be slightly in front or a few inches in front of the golf ball and then slightly below the golf ball. So if you imagine this is the circle, right? This is the arc that the club is working on. If this is the bottom of the circle, if my fist is the golf ball, I need the circle to be in front of, right? The bottom of the circle be in front of, and then slightly below the golf ball. That's going to allow me to make ball first contact and take a divot, right? Whereas if I'm sweeping, if I'm just picking the ball off the turf, what's happening is my club is meeting the turf and the ball at the same time. And that's where the bottom of my circle is. So the best case scenario is to kind of hit it thin for the most part. Unless the ball is sitting up like it's on a perfect lie. In that kind of situation, I can hit a fine shot. But if it's not a great lie, or if it's just kind of a lie where the ball is sitting down, you're going to hit it thin, blade it, that sort of thing. So in order to get to where you have more consistent contact, we need the low point of the swing, the bottom of the swing, to be more in front of the golf ball, a few inches, and then slightly below the golf ball. So the main thing that kind of controls that would be our compression line. Typically, when I see people struggling with thin contact at impact, they kind of look like this. Their upper body is too far back from the golf ball. Their upper body is too far behind the golf ball. We need the upper body to be more like this. Our compression line, remember, is the line that goes from the ankle, hip, and shoulder. We want that to be in a nice straight line at contact, and either vertical with an iron or just slightly angled away, like a couple degrees. If we get to where we're angled away 4, 5, 6, 8 degrees, right? It's just the low point of your swing is going to be too far before the golf ball. So that's typically the thing I see. Another typical thing I see is ball position. Sometimes people put the ball position just way too far forward. So that would probably be the first thing that I would check, is ball position, because it's really the easiest thing to change. Just move the ball further back in the stance, right? So what I like to see for shots off the turf, and this can literally be for every single club in your bag, is slightly forward to the middle of your stance, or if you have proper spine angle at address, which to get proper spine angle, put the club right down the center of your body, get in your posture, and then tilt until it touches the inside of your leg. That's our proper spine angle. And then from there, if you take the club and put it on your lead ear, drop it straight down, that's the ball position that you want to have for basically every single shot that you're playing off the turf. A lot of people I see move it way too far forward as they get up through the bag. We don't want to do that, because that pushes the ball, ahead of our low point, which means that the best case scenario is that you're going to thin it, or maybe top it or chunk it, right? So if we want to make ball first contact, we have to have that circle happening in front of the golf ball. And that circle is relative to the golf ball, right? So if we have the ball way back in our stance, then we can have that circle, have that bottom of that circle in front of the ball. Now, we wouldn't want to put it way back in the stance, because that's going to be too much chopping down into the ball. You're going to have a hard time getting the club face closed. Your path is typically going to be too much into out. So a little bit forward to the middle of the stance is generally going to be a good spot for everybody. Okay. So that'd be kind of the first thing that I would look at. So again, if you do your spine tilt, boom, boom, straight down from lead ear, put it down. That's where the ball should be. And then beyond that, I'd be looking at your compression line. That'd be kind of the next thing. For ball position's good, but then we're kind of like this. We're kind of like this at impact. We're going to tend to hit the ball before the ground, right? So we want to have that body more forward, right? Have the compression line more forward. Your nose is going to be more kind of straight down on top of the golf ball at impact, and your compression line is going to be more vertical and have the sensation that you're really hitting down through the ball. So those would be the things that I would be looking at, is your ball position, your compression line. Those are really the two major things. All right, let's keep going. So Chet M says, I carry 3 irons, 7 through 9, from 3 to 6 are utility clubs with the ladder. How to achieve forward shaft lean? The same way you do with any other club. I guess I don't understand. If any shot that you're hitting off, just use it. You hit them all the same way. I wouldn't hit your 7 through 9 and your 3 through 6 iron. You hit them all the same way. So if you're getting a forward shaft lean with your 7 through 9 iron, the swing is no different for the other clubs. You do the exact same thing. So that's what I'd recommend doing. And really working through the top speed golf system is what helps you to get shaft lean, right? So that's what I'd recommend doing. For me to know specifically what you need to do, I would need to see your swing. But all I can really tell you is to work through the top speed golf system. So Mike A says, first office hours, do we post question here? Yep. And then Mike A goes on to say, I've completed the distance fix and lag courses, making great contact and distance with irons 1.5 clubs longer. Still struggling with straight line release, as I think I'm not rotating properly or straightening my left leg, so I have a slight chicken wing. Any help? Haven't started the straight line release course. I'd recommend working through the top speed golf system. All the courses are prerequisites to the straight line release. So if your stable fluid spine isn't good, straight line release isn't going to happen, right? So in the stable fluid spine, we're talking about getting angled away at the address. We want to remain in that angled away position at the top. And then as we come into impact, we're going to get more angled away, right? So again, our compression line is going to be more vertical here, but our body is going to be angled away, right? That's because our body is opening up. So the stable fluid spine may be where you need to go. The power turn, a lot of people don't relate the power turn to the straight line release. That's absolutely related. If we are not getting a good turn with the shoulders, we're going to tend to try to create speed with our wrists and our arms, and we're going to release the club early to do that. So it'd be very, very difficult to get a good release if we're not getting a good turn with the shoulders. And then also the power turn is not only the backswing, but it's also coming through all the way into the full finish. So if we're making a big turn, then we just throw the arms from there and they're not turning our body through. That's also going to make you release the club early. So the power turn, the lag course, if I am casting this club from the very beginning of the swing and not creating some lag as I'm starting down, then you're just going to have no way to release the club out in front. So I'd make sure that your lag is good. And then the compression line, if remember what we just talked about, the compression line is the line that goes from my lead ankle, hip, and shoulder at contact. I want that to be, with an iron. I want that to be, or shot off the turf. I want that to be vertical or just slightly angled away. With the driver, we can be more angled away because we're hitting up on the ball. The circle can be before the golf ball, so we can be more angled away to make that happen. But if our hip is very bumped out like this, I won't be able to rotate my body, right? So that may be part of it. So that'd be what I'd be looking at, is making sure that all those pieces are in place. Work on them one at a time, get it right. I find that what a lot of people do is they work on multiple pieces of the system at the same time. I do not recommend that because what typically happens is that people won't break through plateaus with the course because, it should be different. If you're struggling with it and you're needing to work through it, it's going to be different than what you're used to. So there's going to be struggle, right? There should be. That's normal, right? If I've never really played a musical instrument before. If I picked up the trumpet and expected to be really good at it and to play a song right away, that would be ridiculous, right? You would think of that as like, that's silly. You're setting yourself up for failure if you think that. But that's what everyone does with the top speed golf system, is they just pick it up and expect to be really good at and doing it right away, and there's gonna be zero struggle. That's not how it works. There's going to be some struggle there. So if you're working on multiple, just kind of circle around. If you're working on multiple pieces, once there's struggle, you're just going to go to the other one. And then once there's struggle there, you'll just go to another one. And then what ends up happening is you end up spending a lot of time working on it, but you don't actually make any progress because you don't work through those struggles, right? You just make a little bit of progress and that stops. You lose all your progress once you move on to something else. So stick with one, get it right, get to where it's second nature, then move on to the next one. So that way, when you move on to the next one, if you've done the time to take the reps and do it, when you move on to the next one, it's going to be second nature. You're going to be doing that automatically, right? So for example, don't do 100 reps of the stable fluid spine and say you're good to go. When you stop thinking about it, you go back to what you're doing before, because once you move on to the next thing, you're going to waste all of the time and effort that you spent to get your stable fluid spine where it was to begin with. So you have to do it to make it second nature. And a lot of people aren't patient enough to do that, but that's just the reality. That's what you have to do. All right, so let's keep it coming. While we're waiting for questions, we can go back to maybe some of the ones that were asked yesterday and answer some of those. Oh, never mind. We just got a question. So Chet M says, when should last club parallel and downswing occur with hands in front of right leg or center of body? Right leg is typically what you're going to see when you look at tour players. Typically, when you're looking for face on, typically in this area, when the hands are in front of the trail leg, you're going to see that club parallel to the ground. Typically, some players it might be a little bit before parallel. Some players it may be a little bit after, but generally it's going to be hands in front of the trail thigh. You're going to see club parallel to the ground. All right, so Ben J says, I completed the shallowing drill. I can hit 10 hooks in a row, but when I move on to the next portion of the drill, I struggle. I have watched Clay's videos on placing an object to help me swing from the inside out and hook the ball when swinging to the right of the target line, but still struggle making this work. Any other suggestions? Yeah, I would go slower until it becomes easier, and then I'd try to build up the speed from there. The reason why you struggle with it is because you're very comfortable with coming down steep. So you need to put in more reps with coming in shallow. And sometimes you just need to slow down to be able to do that. And then once you get to where you can do that easily, then you build it up. So I would just be making a lot of swings with the object there, missing the object, getting the ball to start to the right and curve to the left. I'd be making a lot of swings where you do that until basically you don't mind that object being there, right? It's just fine. You can make a swing to do that. And then when you remove the object, you still have to pretend like it's there. And then once you actually get to where you're overdoing it, the ball's starting to the right and hooking too much, then I would start to tone it down. So Rob R says, I'm struggling with first move from the top to start the shallowing. Can you provide a swing thought? Depends on why you're not shallowing out the club. I don't know why you're not shallowing out the club. There's lots of reasons for that. So the only swing thought I can really tell you is to flatten out the club in the downswing. In the start of the downswing, just try to get it exaggerated as much as possible. But for me to give you a more targeted swing thought, I'd need to see your swing to know, okay, what exactly is preventing the shallowing? What is it? How your shoulders working? Is it how your elbows move working? Is it how your wrist is working? Is it you're not creating enough turn in the backswing? Is it pulling the handle down? I don't know what it is, so I can't really provide a swing thought for you that's just going to target it if I don't know what the actual issue is. I'd need to see your swing to do that. And I'll get to you, Mark, here in just a second. But Rob, just to demonstrate exaggeration, what we have to understand, what is shallowing out the club? Shallowing out the club is this, right? That's what shallowing out the club is. So I would just try to feel like you're doing this in the downswing. This would be exaggerated. We wouldn't actually want to have this club parallel to the ground in the downswing, but this would be very, very exaggerated. Maybe the thought of the club head going underneath the hands in the start of the downswing. Now, in reality, you're probably not going to do that, but that's maybe what I would try to exaggerate. So Marquez says, how do you determine distance for shots out of the bunker? Really, it's the same way you would determine the distance of, a 50-yard wedge shot or a 100-yard wedge shot, right? It's the same kind of thing. So the ball's going to go farther if you use more. If you use less loft, it's going to go farther if you swing harder, right? It's going to go farther if you catch more ball, right? So those are all the things that make the ball go farther. So you need to adjust those things. And the way that you develop the feel to be able to do that is through practice, learn by doing. So I'd go out and practice hitting those bunker shots. And when you take a lot of reps and hit a lot of bunker shots, you're going to start to realize, okay, if I hit it this hard, it goes this far. If I hit it this hard, it goes that far. If I catch this much ball, it goes that far. If I use my 52 degree instead of my 60 degree, it goes this far, right, with the same swing. So those are the things you just have to go out and practice to get the hang of. Keep the questions coming. So Ben J says, I used to swing outside in using the Tuskegee golf system. I've been able to start hitting inside to out. The shallowing course has helped. I've been using my irons for the shallowing course. Do you recommend shallowing the driver swing as well? Excuse me, inside out. Yes. In fact, you probably need to shallow out the driver more because the ball position is more forward in your stance, right? So if you think about, our club, we're swinging from the inside, right? So we're inside, and then it turns a corner, then it works to the left. Well, if our ball position is more forward, then if we shallow the exact same we do when the ball position's more toward the middle of the stance, then the club can tend to work to the left by the time it gets to the ball. Excuse me. So what I would recommend doing is shallow it. If you want to hit draws with the driver, we need to shallow it more with the driver. And I recommend most people hit draws because they're just going to go farther. They're going to be more compressed. They're going to be lower spinning, and they're going to go farther for most people. So yes, you need to do the same thing with the driver. In fact, you probably need to shallow it more for the driver in order to get the same effect. No problem, Ben J. Glad to help. So Peter B says, any suggestions for hitting a chip or pitch shot from wet grass? Expect the ball to go higher and expect it to have less spin. The reason for that is that when it's wet, right, the face and the ball are going to be wet and there's going to be more slippage. So that slippage on the club face will make the ball go higher and it will also make it spin less. Now, a lot of times the net result can be about the same for a shot that would be dry, right? Because the ball's not going to slip up the face. It's going to come out lower. But because it comes out lower, it's going to have a flatter angle of descent. But then it's going to have the spin, which is going to help it stop. Whereas with a wet shot, right, the ball's going to slip up the face, so it's going to come out a little bit higher. Excuse me. It's going to come out a little bit higher, but it's going to have a steeper angle of descent with less spin. So because it has a steeper angle of descent, it may not roll out very much, right? So I would just expect to have to carry the ball farther for for that kind of shot, right? Because the ball's going to slip up the face. So you need to hit it a little bit harder generally out of. Other than that, it's really the same technique for a normal pitch or chip. It's just going to come out a little bit higher with a little bit less spin. Usually, you have to hit them a little bit harder to get there, right? You got to get a little bit more energy to get there. So that's what I would recommend doing. So Gene W says best way to adjust for a driver fade. Really, the way that I hit a fade with the driver is this: you want to set up the same way you would hit a draw. We want to shallow all the clubs. It's really going to get you the best, the best control of the club is to shallow it with all clubs. That's why all tour players shallow out the club. The difference is that if I'm hitting a draw, right, I'm probably going to have, if I'm shallowing it, I'm going to have my feet relatively pointed at the target. I may have them slightly closed off, but I'm going to be pretty pretty square with the target. I'm going to shallow out this club, swing the club from the inside. The face is going to be closed to that path, and I'm going to get a draw. If I'm hitting a fade, I still want to swing the same way relative to my body. But in order to hit a fade, I need the face to be open to my path. And in order to hit a fade on target, I need my path to be to the left. So I can start the ball to the left and bring it back, right, for a right-handed golfer. So what I would do is I would just take the exact same swing as far as shallowing is concerned. And I'm going to change my alignment to be, I'm exaggerating here, but I'm going to change my alignment to be more to the left. So assume that this is my target line, right? I'm going to change my alignment to be to the left. So that way I'm still going to be shallowing out the club relative to my body, but my path is going to be to the left of the target. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold off the face. So with the driver, I let the face go and I let it roll over through contact to get it closed. And then with the fade, I'm going to hold that face, right? I'm going to keep that face open so that way I can get it to bring back, right? So that's that's the way I would recommend hitting a fade. So a line to the left, take the same shallow swing, just hold the face open through contact to get it to fade back. Excuse me. So let's keep the questions coming here. All right. So Ken P says, I've been watching a TSP video by Michael Durr. He shows to move the hips forward as you are shifting your weight forward rather than starting to turn them. He is saying that allows more room to stay inside rather than the club coming around the hips and casting and causing a slice. Could you explain and demonstrate for us? So basically, what he's talking about and where I believe, I haven't seen the video, but if I had to guess, what I often see is people are obsessed with getting their body to open up, getting the hips to open up. So what they'll do is they'll get up to the top, and then first move coming down, they'll just, the upper body, everything kind of opens up, and you can see how that can cause an over the top. So really what the reality is that we need to be incentivized to open up the body. If we're coming down steep, you're not going to be incentivized to open up the body. You need to shallow out the club to be incentivized to open up the body, right? So imagine if I shallowed out this club a ton and then didn't open up the body. Well, my club would be too much from the inside. So if I shallowed out this club a ton, and then that allows me to be incentivized to open up the body. So I think that's probably more of what the video is about. If I had to guess, like I said, I haven't seen the video. But yeah, a lot of people are on their trail side, and then what they'll do is they'll just open up and throw the arms and the hands out. And what we want to do is we want to be going up to the top of the swing, and then as we're getting up to the top, we're actually going to be kind of moving our body away from the toward the target. So if you were to draw a line on the outside of your hip, if you look at most tour players, pretty much all tour players, I think Rory is really good at this. And Rory is a good person to watch because he has more of a draw bias kind of swing. But if you draw a line on the outside of your hip here, what you're going to see is in the very beginning of the swing, you'll see a lot of tour players. They'll just bump into that line slightly. Then they'll start going back and around. And then as they're getting up to the top, you're going to see a gap start to form between their hip and the line. Now, there's two things going on there. One is that when we're rotating the hips, they're getting narrower, right? From this viewing angle, at least for most people. Right, my hips are wider this way than they are this way, right? So if I turn my hips, they're gonna get narrower as far as looking from this perspective. And then the other thing that's happening is I'm pushing my hips kind of toward the target. I'm getting a little bit of lateral movement toward the target. So if I go up to the top, right, and I'm like this, now look at all this space that I have to be able to swing this club from the inside. Right, I can put pressure into the ground. I have this space from the inside, and I can swing from the inside. Whereas if I kind of slide my hips and then I think, okay, rotate my body, what a lot of people will do is they'll rotate their upper body first, and then everything kind of comes out over the top. So focus on creating the space like we do in the stable fluid spine course, right? We want to make sure we're nice and angled away at the top. So that way I can swing this club from the inside. Your first move is not to open the upper body. The first move is to put pressure into the ground, and then that sends a sequence through your body, and really your upper body, your chest, is what starts to open last. Now, it doesn't mean your chest isn't opening to start the downswing. It just means that it's opening because of the hips are opening, right? So it's just you're creating this separation as you go up to the top, right? So my chest is probably turned 90 degrees. My hips are turned 45. If I turn this way, well, now my hips are back to square. My chest is at 45. My hips really haven't opened relative to my body, right? Then they'll eventually kind of open up and at impact, my chest may be more open, right? But you have to let it catch up. If you just bring your chest open right away, you're going to tend to come over the top and come down steep. And if you try to open up even more, it's just going to make it even worse. So Gene W says, what is the effect of a too upright lie angle? Well, if the club's too upright, then the face can get too open, right? So if I put this angle finder on the club, right, and if I come down into contact and the handle is very upright, you can see how that opens up the club face, right? So that'd be lie angle flat, right, in the square face. And then if I raise it up, you can see how that opens the club face, right? So that'd be one. Another thing is that the toe would be coming down and contacting the ball first, right? So if my hand here is the lie, right, and then I'm coming down and this club is toe down first, the only way I can really get I can't really get any decent contact on this ball because one, my toe is going to come down and hit the turf first. If I get this ball in the center of the face, the best thing I can really do if the toe is really high is to kind of hit it low on the face and hit it thin. So I need to get this club more flat so that way I can come in and make good turf contact interaction there. So one, it opens the face, and two, gets the toe down, which makes it much, much more difficult to make solid contact. You're going to chunk and thin shots typically in that situation because it raises the sweet spot, right? So we got 20 minutes or so. All right, sounds like we got a question here from Peter B. Says, I've been observing golfers using the rangefinders and GPS to get distance and then hitting the shot the correct distance, but 40 feet offline. So, what are the tips to hit shots more online? So, really, what to hit a shot that's online, you need to have one center face contact. A lot of people don't look at that as, um, you know, what can make the ball go straight or not straight, but it makes a big difference. If you don't hit the ball in the center of the face, so let's say you hit it off the toe, the face will twist open. Sorry, I don't know why it's getting all blurry. There we go. The face will actually twist open, and that will make the ball start more to the right than it normally would for right-handed golfer. And then what also can happen is something called gear effect, which means that it's going to change the spin axis of the golf ball. So when I hit the ball on the face, right, it's going to kind of smash and pancake on the face, and then it's going to kind of roll toward the center of the club face. So you can imagine if I hit a ball on the toe and it rolls toward the center of the club face, it's going to put that kind of that hook spin on there. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to hook. It just means that it may draw more than it normally would or fade less than it normally would. That's really, what it comes down to. So when you hit the ball off the toe, the face will start more to the right than it normally would, and it will tend to draw more or fade less than it normally would, right? If you hit the ball off the heel, the ball will do the opposite. It will tend to start more to the left than it normally would because the face twists closed a little bit, and then it will tend to fade more or draw less than it normally would. So number one, face center of the face contact, and then the other two pieces are the face and path relationship, right? So when I say face, I'm talking the direction the club face is pointing at impact, right? I need that to be relatively in the direction of the target. The club face is where the ball is going to start, assuming you hit it in the center of the face, right? The ball is going to start mostly in the direction of that club face. And then it's going to curve away from your club path. So if you have a big difference between your face and your path, and just to tell you what path is like when we're swinging into out, out to in, right? If you swing to the right, that would be a path. That would be too much into out. You swing too much to the left, right? That'd be too much out to in, right? If we have a big difference between our face and our path relationship, then there's going to be more curvature on the golf ball. If we have, let's say that we don't have a lot of curvature on the golf ball, but it's in the wrong direction, then that means that your path, that relationship needs to be shifted, right? So to hit it straight, we need to hit it in the center of the face. We need to have our face and our path relatively toward the target, or at least matching what kind of shot you're trying to hit. So for a draw, you need to have the path in to out. You need to have it to the right of the target if you're a right-handed golfer. And you need to have the face a little bit closed to the path, but open to the target, right? So let me explain what that means. If I want to hit a draw, I need the ball to start to the right if I want to curve back toward the target, right? So that means, remember what I said, the face, the ball's going to start in the direction of the club face. So I need my face to be slightly open to the target in order to make that happen, right? In order for it to start to the right. In order for it to curve back, I need my path to be to the right of that, right? So face, I need my path to be in to out. I need my face to be a little bit close to the path, but open to the target to get the ball to start to the right, curve to the left. For a fade, it would just be the opposite, right? I need my path to be to the left. I need my face to be a little bit open to my path, but close to the target to get it to start to the left, right? So that's really what it comes down to. If you want to work on controlling your face and your path, I'd recommend the 20-minute shallowing fix, right? So that's what I would recommend doing. And to get to the 20-minute shallowing fix, click the instruction tab and click the 20-minute shallowing fix. If you're struggling with center face contact, excuse me, I would see if you have a tendency to hit it on a certain part of the face. Most people have a tendency, meaning most people are hitting it on one part of the face. Sorry, my voice is scratchy today. Most people are hitting it, either on the toe or on the heel or mostly in the center, right? If you're hitting it mostly in the center, then you're good to go. But if you use some foot power spray and you spray it on the club face and you find that you're hitting it on the heel, then try to hit it on the toe. If you find that you're tending to hit it off the toe, then try to hit it on the heel. It's just about adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. So that's what I would recommend doing. Brandon W says, can you demonstrate proper weight transfer for the trail leg? I feel like I get on my big toe more than I should be, and trail hip immediately moves closer to the golf ball. Yeah, so we don't want to be kind of pushing into with the toes, right? So it's more about balance, right? So if you're kind of going out toward the toes, right, well, then I'm going to move my hips forward with that, right? So you want to drive in the heel and drive the hip back. That's what I'd be really focusing on in the backswing. Drive in that right heel, drive that hip back and around. So Rob R says, in the shallow training, they talk about stopping your swing at last parallel point and adjust the club face. Do you hit from that spot or revert to a full swing? Shallow training. I mean, that's just what you need to feel like during the swing, because I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I would try to do it in a normal full swing. If you can't do it, then maybe start with like the half swings and then get comfortable with it, then work toward the full swings. Ed D says, is the body pulled around by momentum of the club releasing a straight line release? No, it's the opposite. You want the body, slinging the club out into the straight line release, right? We don't want it to be, I'll put it this way. You can't really release the club out in front if your club is leading the way, right? It's very, very difficult to release or near impossible if your body is not kind of leading the way, right? It's going to be very difficult to release the club out in front. I mean, that's almost like if you're a baseball pitcher, right, and you kept your back to the batter and threw the ball. That's not going to be very powerful, right? You're going to open up your body to throw to the ball. So we need to have our body kind of leading the way to get it to release out in front. Does trying to turn too long keep the club from releasing properly? I guess I don't understand the question. Trying to turn too long to what? Turning in the backswing and the downswing? What exactly are you talking about? We got about 10 minutes left here. So Rob R says, one more question. I am very steep on the takeaway. Should I try and get more shallow, even on the backswing, or just address it on the downswing? It only matters how it is in the downswing. So as long as the club is coming down in a good spot on the downswing, I honestly don't care what the backswing looks like. Because really that's all the backswing is. The backswing is to set you up to have a good downswing and impact, right? So if the downswing is where it needs to be, then whatever you're doing in the backswing is fine, right? That's why you see a lot of different things. You'll see a lot of great players that have different backswings, but the downswings all look very, very similar. There's a lot of similarities in the downswing, but in the backswings, that's where you'll see a lot of differences, right? So if you look at like a Matt Wolff, for example, Matt Wolff, extremely steep backswing. He brings the club way up like this, right? If you look at like a Raymond Floyd, he brought the club way inside and up. Sam Snead, way inside and up. JB Holmes, way inside and up. You look at like a Rory and a Tiger, they bring it up pretty much, almost on the same as they bring it down, right? It's pretty close. So there's lots of ways to do it. It only really matters if how it's coming down. So if it's coming down in a good spot, then I wouldn't mess with the backswing. Now, generally, when I see people try to shallow out the club in the backswing, they'll tend to come down steep in the downswing. So if you're shallowing in the downswing, I would highly recommend to not try to change the backswing to be shallower, because you'll typically tend to come down steep. You may ruin your downswing because of it. So be careful with that. We got a few minutes left. If anybody's got any last minute questions, if not, no big deal. Let's see here. Maybe answer a question from yesterday. So John K says, "Hi Q, can you show where the hips and shoulders should be at impact? Should they be at approximately the same as at address?" No, typically the hips and the chest are going to be more open. When we look at the best players, that's typically what's happening. If you return your hips and your shoulders back to where they were at address, then what will typically happen is you will early release the club because your body will have stalled out, right? And you'll early release it. So usually when we look at the best players, the hips are going to be around 40, 45 degrees open, right? So here they are square. And then at impact, we're usually about 40, 45 degrees open. And then the shoulders are typically going to be slightly open. Square to slightly open up to like 15 degrees. I do see some tour players where their shoulders are more open than that, but generally it's going to be somewhere in that 0 to 15 degree range. Right, so it's going to be more like this. So shoulders relatively square, hips 45 degrees open. That'd be kind of a blanket statement. There's definitely some tour players that are less open than that, and more open than that with the shoulders. It just depends on range of motion, flexibility, and things like that. But generally, we don't want to be returning back to square with everything because that means your body is typically stalling out, and then that's going to lead to an early release and things like that. All right. So while we got a couple more minutes, I'll look and see if there's another question. Doesn't look like there's anything real good. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up then. And we'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day. And we'll talk to y'all next time.